According to the FBI, a hate crime is a criminal offense against a person motivated by the offender's bias against a race, religion, disability, sexual orientation, ethnicity, gender, or gender identity. Violent acts of hate are acts of terror, plain and simple. Victims of violent hate crimes are more likely to experience the post-traumatic stress, safety concerns, depression, anxiety, and anger than victims of crimes that are not motivated by bias. They continue to live their lives of who they are, how they look, with no escape from that. Who are we talking about here? I will tell you. The Department of Justice's 2019 Uniform Crime Report details that hate crime perpetrators are more motivated to commit their crimes based on race, 55.8%, religion, 21.4%, and sexual orientation, 19.6%. The 2019 statistics show that a whopping 78.6 were hate acts directed at an actual person, not property, and 21% of those were violent assaults. Specifically, in LA, the data is disturbing. Last year's numbers recorded hate crimes were the worst in a decade, and over the last 6 years, hate crimes in LA have gone up by 36% in that time frame. The most shocking increases have occurred in the anti-transgender, religious, Jewish, Middle Eastern, and Asian communities. Incidents against transgender persons rose by 64%. Recorded incidents of hate were alarming 62.2% against gay men. Against a person because their religious beliefs rose 11%, 89% of which were anti-Semitic. The Middle Eastern community was devastated as such acts against them increased by over 142%. As we've become too aware of lately, the Asian community has been targeted, experiencing a 32% increase. Mind you, this is prior to the epidemic of assaults that we've seen in the community in 20 and 21. So for the last 2 years, we don't have any data. Violent acts of hate are universal in many aspects. The victim is unable to change the way they look, the way they choose to live their lives, or their personal religious lives. They're completely unsuspecting of danger pre and post assault, living in fear. They're literally marked. They go to a store, a park, a restaurant, a place of worship, or just walk down the street. They are locked in constant fear. And once a victim, the fear never escapes them. They are never released. The violent act of hate lives within the rest of their lives, and they are never released from their prison. AB 266 will move the most violent acts of hate crimes in the Penal Code from a serious classification to a violent classification. AB 266 only applies, I'll repeat again, only applies to those individuals in which a court has deemed their acts so heinous, so violent, that they are sent to state prison. AB 266 does not add one more day to a convicted person's court-ordered sentence, but it keeps them in there to fulfill what the courts deem necessary. AB 266 will make a person convicted of a violent hate crime and sent to prison ineligible for early release. These individuals have been indoctrinated and conditioned with a poison that has been cut into their mind so deeply and has infected their heart, a condition that can take time to rehabilitate. They need more time, not less. Some people are evil, deserving to do the majority of their sentences that the courts deem necessary for full rehabilitation, and I am unapologetic for that. So I ask, where are the champions of social justice on this issue? Where is Equality California, the Jewish Federation, CARE, and APAPA for the next victim? The victim does not have to be. You've heard the numbers, and I know that each and every one of you know at least one hate crime victim. I urge you in these organizations to join me in this fight to eliminate hate crimes. And next up is my co-author, Assemblyman Evan Lowe.
Yes, Mr. Lowe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and colleagues. I want to thank our joint author in addressing the issue at hand specifically. As you all know, that there is a dangerous rise on the attack on fellow Americans throughout the state of California and in our nation, and that individuals in our streets are being targeted, victimized, and murdered senselessly. And in the same direction of the state of California, we are focused on justice reform, but these issues in protecting our communities are not mutually exclusive. And I thank the chair for hearing this bill, not only an opportunity to be responsive. I find myself every single weekend now marching in the streets, rallying with individuals, crying out and asking what we can collectively do. And I am appreciative of the conversation to address and see what we might be able to do to tackle this issue. As you've seen, there have been a number of measures, including budget augmentation on collecting data so that we can help empower local communities on data collection. But that's only one piece of it. And again, this is a sensible measure to help address and be responsive to the communities at hand, while also respecting the direction in the state of California with empathy and with compassion. And with that, I respectfully ask for a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe and Mr. Cooper. Any witnesses in the audience in support? Any witnesses on the video screen? Seeing that, AT&T, could you open up the phone lines for witnesses in support?
Thank you. If you wish to speak in support.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. If you wish to speak in support of AB 266, please press 1 and then 0 at this time. Once again, for support of AB 266, please press 1 and then 0 at this time. And we currently have 3 in queue. It'll just be one moment.
Thank you.
And we'll go to the line of 126. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members. Larry Morse on behalf of the California District Attorneys Association in support of this measure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Line 127, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. Corey Salzillo on behalf of the California State Sheriff's Association in support of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. 128, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, committee chair and members. I am Elaine Bissett, calling on behalf of San Diego County District Attorney Summer Stefan, and we are strong supporters of AB 266. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have one more comment in queue. It'll just be one moment for that one. And we'll go to line 131. Please go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members. Ryan Sherman with the Riverside Sheriff Association, also in support. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no further comments in queue at this time.
Thank you, operator. And now witnesses in opposition. I think I have Kathy Schur, ACLU California Action, and Margot George, CPDA, California Public Defender's Office.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members, Kathy Sharper, ACLU California Action. We, of course, agree with the Assembly member on the urgent need to find effective ways to fight hate crimes in our society, and especially acts of violence motivated by hate. This bill, however, is not about violent crime. It is about harsher punishments for nonviolent crimes. Targeting nonviolent hate crimes by recategorizing them as violent will do nothing to stop violent hate crimes. There are many felony hate crimes that are not violent felonies. Vandalism that causes over $950 in property damage can be a felony hate crime, as is any felony committed on the basis of the actual or perceived characteristics of the victim that fit into the hate crime definition. When a violent felony is committed that is also a hate crime, it can be punished as a violent felony with increased penalties because it is a hate crime. Trying to fight violent hate crimes by increasing the time that nonviolent offenders are incarcerated makes little sense. We respectfully ask for your no vote.
Thank you. Ms. George?
Good afternoon. I'm Margot George for the California Public Defenders Association. The California Public Defenders Association stands in solidarity with communities of color and immigrants who bear the brunt of hate crimes. Increasing punishment is not a solution to this societal problem. In fact, increasing punishment is counterproductive. We have already witnessed how the failed policy of mass incarceration has made our communities less safe and diverted scarce resources from schools, healthcare, mental health treatment, and housing to instead building and filling more prisons. We must oppose AB 266 because it would do nothing to end the epidemic of hate crimes. Ending hate crimes takes more work and dedication and perseverance than increasing punishment and filling our prisons. As a child, I went with my father, who was a cooperating lawyer with the ACLU, to the Christian Koinonia community near Americus, Georgia, in the late 1950s. An interracial farming community, the Ku Klux Klan and their neighbors bombed their house, fired shots through their windows, and attempted to run them off their property. They refused to leave, sought legal help, gave birth to Habitat for Humanity, and are still there today farming. Today, the Southern Poverty Law Center has a 10-point program to fight hate that embodies and expands many of the lessons from Koinonia. Act, join forces, support the victims, speak up, educate yourself, create an alternative. Pressure leaders, you're our leaders. Stay engaged, teach acceptance. Bias is learned early, often at home. Schools can offer lessons of tolerance and acceptance. Dig deeper, look inside yourself for biases and stereotypes. This 10-point program can be best summarized as commit to disrupting hate and intolerance at home, at school, in the workplace, and in faith communities. Acceptance fundamentally is a personal decision. It comes from an attitude that is learnable and embraceable, a belief that every voice matters, that all people are valuable, that no one is less than. I respectfully urge your no vote on AB 266. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll bring it back into the hearing room. Are there anyone in opposition in the room? Anyone on the video screen in opposition? AT&T operator. You can now go to the phone for individuals in opposition of AB 266.
Thank you. If you wish to make a comment in opposition of AB 266, please press 1 and then 0 at this time. Once again, for opposition of AB 266, please press 1 and then 0 at this time. I currently have 1 in queue. We'll go to line 80. Please go ahead.
Danica Rodarmel on behalf of the San Francisco Public Defender in opposition.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do have 1 more in queue. It'll just be 1 moment for that line. Line 92, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Gregory Fidel with Initiate Justice in Respectful Opposition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have no further comments in queue at this time.
Thank you. We'll bring it back to the committee for questions. Mr. Quirk, Ms. Ciarto, and Mr. Lackey.
So I don't have a question, but I do have a comment, and that is by calling nonviolent felonies violent, you will actually increase the time in jail because you can't get as much credit. Also, that this was part of Proposition 20, which was overwhelmingly voted down, and for that reason, I can't support this this bill. Thank you.
So what I was,
Mr.
Okay.
That wasn't a question. So next, Mr. Ciarto.
Thank you. I want to thank Mr. Cooper, Mr. Lowe for bringing this common sense measure forward. You know, the hate they talk about lives in people, and there's a lot of people that have that or may have that inside them, but they don't act out on it. The problem is when they really start acting out on that, there doesn't seem to be enough of a deterrent. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having the problems that we have today. So what we are doing is clearly not working, and we need to do more to create those deterrents and holding people accountable for their ridiculously misguided behavior. And so I applaud you for bringing this forward and trying to attack this with common sense and accountability. And so I will be supporting it, and I make a motion to approve this bill.
And Mr. Cooper and Mr. Lowe, you can, whatever anyone said, you can wrap it up in your closing.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll
Go
second
ahead.
that motion too, by the way.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I'd just like to follow up on Mr. Ciarto's accolades and say thank you to both of you for being the voice of many people who aren't able to sit there and explain to us why we should be supporting this measure. When the judicial arm appropriately responds to actions of hate, we support victims, and they deserve that level of support, and I'm proud to support this measure, which I believe does what's sorely needed in our system.
Thank you. Ms. Wicks?
Thank you. I appreciate the author's desire to tackle the hate crime issue because I think it's very real and present, and obviously we've been experiencing it in a multitude of ways in our communities, well, since the beginning of this country, frankly. But I share Mr. Quirk's concerns with the bill. You know, not all hate crimes are violent, and so if someone had property damage over $950, that would be then considered a violent felony and would have accordingly that punishment. And I also share the concern around, or the point that was raised around Prop 20. This was included in Prop 20 and it was voted down. So for these reasons, I won't be supporting the bill today. But I do appreciate the conversation and hope that the authors continue to tackle the issue.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Cooper and Mr. Lowe, whoever wants, or both jointly, however you want to do it.
Thank you very much, colleagues, for your comments. You know, you hear about so much of the hurt and the pain, the righteous pain, and I know that each of you feel it in your communities and your districts. And you hear speeches about what we need to do to tackle this issue. But I'll submit before you that it is not enough just for $1.4 million from the state budget to do data collection or to help work with community-based organizations. It's incumbent upon us to protect our communities. And let me tell you, what I'm hearing from my community members in the age-based violence community is, especially during the issue of Black Lives Matter, where are Black and brown brothers and sisters marching with us in solidarity and doing the type of work that is so important that needs to be done. I want to commend Assemblymember Cooper for doing just that and saying, what do we have at our disposal to help tackle and address these issues? Again, there's an opportunity for us to look at something sensible, and these issues are not mutually exclusive. I welcome the partnership and appreciate and respect the position of the committee and individual members, but also use this as an opportunity then to say, if you are not supportive of this, what in addition will you do to be proactive versus just simply the status quo? What will you do to be a champion and helping to advocate for those that don't have a voice? And that's what you see here today, a partnership between two members of the legislature trying to tackle an issue. And we look forward to the continued dialogue with us collectively as a whole. I respectfully ask for a vote.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper?
That's a good question, Mr. Lowe. What will you do? I thank you for being here, and I worry about you every day on the weekends when you're out at these protests and these rallies to rally against Asian hate crimes. I worry about you, something happening to you because of your race. I met your father many times. I worry about your father going to the store. Is someone going to assault him and cause great bodily injury? And I'll tell you what, data collection's fine, and we've got $1.4 million for a hotline. So tell us more. Wow, there's more crimes against the API community, more crimes against Asians. We know that. You're going to report it. That's great. But what are we doing? And Mr. Quirk made a comment about Prop 20 failed. Prop 20 had many moving parts to it, and that was just one part. It was multiple hate crimes. It was not just the hate crimes bill. This is hate crimes very narrowly defined. If I follow Mr. Quirk's mode of thinking, Prop 15, the business tax, that failed and came back. Proposition 16, affirmative action, that was voted down. Prop 18, to let 17-year-olds vote, your bill, that was voted down. Prop 21, rent control, that was voted down. Prop 22, or AB 5, Uber Lyft, that was voted down. Prop 25, Bell referendum. So, no, it doesn't change that. This is not mass incarceration, if you think about it. this is felony hate crimes. You're causing great bodily injury to someone. You're injuring someone, and you're destroying or vandalizing a place of worship. So for someone to get sentenced to state prison, as we know right now, most folks go to county jail because of realignment. So if a judge deems that crime so vicious, so bad, that he sends someone to state prison, that's what he's doing. So what it doesn't do, it doesn't take away good time. It doesn't take away program time. It takes away work time. That's all it does. So you're still getting those credits. So it takes away work time. So the judge sentences you to a sentence. They don't take into account all the good time, work time, blah, 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 blah. It is a sentence. So what this bill says, if you do something so violent, so heinous, that you know what, you don't get to get out 6 months early. That's all the bill does. It doesn't do additional time. The judge sentenced you originally. So it's a big issue with that. And it's something to think about. Look what we've seen for our Asian communities. You know, what has the legislature done so far? Nothing. People want to sit on their hands. All these caucuses that talk about things and people's rights, we want to defend people. We want to defend our LGBTQ community, our API community. For Mr. Lowe to step out and get involved, I applaud him for that. But it's doing the right thing for his people and for all of California. You got to stand for something. Otherwise, you stand for folks like the Proud Boys that are out doing these type of crimes. And that's a damn shame. That is a damn shame. Who do we represent? The victims. Look at the numbers for our Muslim people, 142% in violent crimes. We're not even here for that. 142%. But damn, California has a hotline, so we can find that out. Really? That is horrible. That is horrible. It's time to step up and say enough is enough, and not just study it and hey, we'll do something. Let's do something. It's not that bad. Like I said, if you beat up an old man, and we see it in San Francisco, old Asian lady, beat her up, you know what? You should sit your butt in jail and not get out early. So it's one of those things you pick. Either you're picking the perpetrator, the Proud Boys, or you're picking our API community. There's no in between. So with that, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.